Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us here. I am here with Catherine, and I'm here with Lisa, and it looks like we're joined by a few other people still joining in, waiting for Dan Hennen to join in. How's everybody doing?
I'm doing good.
Don't you kind of hate that question when somebody asks you, how's everybody doing, or how are you doing? What are you supposed to really say? Because for me, I kind of think, well, if I start telling you, you know what, man, I'm having some really bad back problems right now, okay? I spent 30 minutes on the toilet or something like that. I don't know if you guys really want to know how my day goes, but I'm always curious about that, of how it's almost just like secondhand nature, and I always tell myself, don't do that. Don't ask people how their day is going. They could have had the worst day ever, and then we're going to spend 20 minutes talking about the person's day, and now I'm spending 5 minutes talking about why we shouldn't talk about all that stuff and just rambling on here. So I do apologize to everyone. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Right now, nobody is on mute, so as long as there's no feedback or anything, if anybody wants to jump in at any time, we have our chat open. So if you want to join us in the chat, if you have some questions, we want to hear those questions. If you have some points, we want to hear that. If we're jumping in and we're talking over you and you're like, hey, I just want to make a quick point, I only got 5-10 minutes or something, and if you can get into the chat, and I will make sure that everybody's questions get answered, everybody has a chance to say whatever they want to say, as long as we can do it nice and respectfully, and as long as it's towards the same goal. So who's up? Just me.
I know, right? You need to get that little soundbite of crickets.
I've got a little soundbite thing here, but it's what I call a bullshit meter.
There you go.
And thankfully, I've never really had to use. I don't even know if this thing still works. I'm gonna try it. No, it doesn't work. Oh, and the batteries are dead. This thing is pretty cool. It calls on my bullshit. Thankfully, I haven't had to use it, so I must be doing something wrong here. That's all right. But we do appreciate everybody joining us, and we're just going through some of these documents, and I was talking with Catherine about the notepad and how I think we have 59 pages. There is blood on several of these pages, not just on the pages on page 30 and 31. There's blood on other pages too. There's blood on the front cover and blood on the back of the front cover of the notepad, where somebody wrote, submit to Allah now, open the Rise most recent version. It sounds like the cover was first closed, somebody flipped it open, and for whatever reason wrote these two separate things that have nothing to do with the other. They're two completely separate notes here. Not suicide notes, not signed. We don't know who it's really by. We can guess, we can speculate, but the tests were never done to prove who actually wrote this. And so we're thinking about maybe looking into hiring a handwriting specialist. I'm not rich, so I can't be someone who's going to charge us an arm and a leg. They can just charge us one arm. That might be okay.
Or a pinky.
Or a pinky is good too. I'll take a pinky, sure.
But
you can take a pinky.
But you bring up a really good point, Greg, and that's what I noticed when I was reading this new set of documents that you got. Was, on the original FOIA that they sent, they only were mentioned 2 pages. 30 and 31 had blood. So it made it sound, and I always thought that the notepad was open to that page. But then when I'm looking at the blood samples that they took throughout several pages of the notebook, plus the cover, that gives you a whole different perspective of what's going on. And that doesn't fit, obviously, into their agenda as well, because why would David, if he's on a murder-suicide mission, stop and take time to go into a totally different room to open up a notepad to write some stupid note like that? It just didn't make sense.
Yeah, that's right.
But wasn't it, this is Lisa, wasn't it Comel's blood on there?
Yes.
Yes.
So, that I don't understand.
Well,
because her blood.
I think it's because her blood is the same. It's her blood that's on the bloody wall. Her blood is everywhere. Anywhere that there's these random little blood spots, at least with the ones that they tested, it's her blood. There's nobody else's blood. I mean, there are in certain cases, but yeah, most of it is done with her blood. The question is, where did that blood come from? It doesn't look like, if you're looking at, there's no indication that somebody like ripped open her stomach and took all of this blood. Where did this blood come from? When you look at the body, does it match with what they're saying? I don't know if that's making sense. It makes sense in my head. I'm not articulating it the right way that I want to, but
since her head, most of her head and her neck are missing, and her hands are missing, she could easily bleed out from a carotid or from the jugular or from her her veins and arteries and her wrists. But we don't know because, obviously we don't have access to the full medical examiner's report, and you just can't. You have to be a family member to get that. And so, yeah, it's crazy.
You would almost have to think that she didn't put the blood there, right?
Correct.
Okay. Then that makes more sense.
And that kind of goes against the whole pack theory, right? That there was no pack theory for David and his wife to kill themselves, take their kid with them because they wanted to go to a better place or go to some foreign world or whatever these crazy theories are. But I think that kind of should put to rest the pack theory, right?
Yeah, I would think so. And not only that, it's just the amount of violence at this scene. I can't imagine two parents who loved their child as much as they did, even if they made a suicide pact, would go to that amount of violence toward not only each other but their child. If they believed in an afterlife like that, what kind of afterlife would that be if you took out your own child in such a vicious manner?
Right.
Right. It would have made more sense for them to go sit in their car in their garage.
Yes. I agree with that.
Instead of a scene like that.
Yeah, and when they leave some type of note, something to let people know why to take the kid with them, and it's just all of this was just kind of thrown in our face when the case first happened, and many people bought it, and they thought that this was true, and it was just like, wow, that was quick, didn't take much, didn't take long, and I don't know, just going through all of these notes and everything, it seems like I wouldn't say people had their story in place at right then, but it's I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me.
No, and that's the hard thing, with violence like this. It's really hard for the human mind sometimes to actually grasp how, for lack of a better word, evil someone has to be to do this, to go to this extent. So it's easier to take regardless of how improbable it is, it's easier to take the easiest solution. So in this case, for some people, it's just easier to believe David did it than to think that there's people out walking around who could do this to a family. Because that person's still walking around, person or persons, they're still out there. And that's kind of scary.
Absolutely is. If that was my family, and I even had the slightest notion that somebody else had done this, that's one thing I don't understand, why the families aren't like, yes, please research this, because if there was any chance that the killer was still out there, I would want to know.
Yeah, I agree. And, the only time I've ever seen something like this happen, now I need to preface this by saying I am not accusing Dan Jr. I am not. But it would only make sense I have to throw that but in there. It would make sense that a father wouldn't, he's already lost one son. He wouldn't want to lose another. You know, he loves his children. So if that were, you know, that in that case, it would make sense that the family wouldn't want it investigated because he wouldn't want to lose a second son. But, you know, I was watching that last part of that ridiculous Netflix thing, and, you know, I was just paying attention to Dan Sr.'s face when he was reading that, and I still, from the very first time I saw that, and even again last night, watching his face tells me he doesn't believe one word he said. It was pained. It was like, he doesn't believe his son did it. And so I don't understand why, other than, does he know who did it and he just doesn't want to get them in trouble? Or is he afraid? I don't know.
You mean when he was reading the journal?
Yeah, it was toward the end. I think it was the journal. He was just reading something, and then the look on his face was just, it was pained, you know, and like he just didn't buy it.
Yeah, he wasn't reading. Go ahead, Lisa.
I just found it curious as in that Netflix thing, how he was reading the journal, like David had written it, and then the last entry was as if he was just telling what happened himself, the father. It wasn't like he was reading what David had written. He was saying, well, and then the last entry here, it was like in the third person. I mean, you know, it wasn't like David had written it. It was, I don't know how to explain it. It wasn't, he didn't read it. Like, whatever he read wasn't like David writing, like, I did this or I did that. He was more like, and then they did this, and then he...
Yes. And that, you know, to me, that to me looked like he was, like somebody typed up 2 pieces of paper, maybe 3 or 4 pieces, and had him read it all, and then just edited it the way that they wanted to. Because I do think that as he's reading this, he's almost like, wait, what did I just read? That's kind of how it came off. So I don't think he was reading from the actual journal. He might have been reading some things that people typed up that told him that they were from this journal. But there is no journal. I don't know what journal. And that just seemed like a big thing that a lot of people use to kind of confuse us, or to just be like, wait a minute, there's another journal. So we asked Detective Gummert about this other journal, and he says, no, there is no other journal. So that's why that's where I have a hard time with the people who say that there is this other journal, and then there's Kamel's journal that pops up after too. So the only journals that the police know of are the only one of any relevance, I guess, that they mention are David's, and they both end. One starts in September and ends in October, or something like that, but there's nothing beyond that. So where's everything else?
Yeah.
So I had a hard time with those journals, and I got lost, and I think I wrote it down because when we talked to Sidra's friend and we were talking about the whole journal, and she kind of broke all of that down, it's still, I was like, okay, it kind of makes sense. I'm still not really getting it, but yeah, that whole document, Catherine, I don't know how you can watch that. It's just the worst. It's bad.
It is.
Bad.
Well, I watched it actually several times just so I could. Every time I watched it, I would see something else that was off.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I wasn't watching it believing that this is the way it was. I would watch it to have some sort of reference as to what was wrong. You know, it was just like a lot of stuff that was brought up in the group webpage about the film, I would go back and watch it again and say, yeah, that's right. Now I see it, because a lot of the stuff I didn't know. Honestly, I didn't even know anything about this case until I saw that. Until I saw,
really?
Yeah. And I live in Wisconsin, so I mean, I'm not that far away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then I found, I went on YouTube to get some more information, and that's what led me to you guys. And yeah, it's just really, really strange.
Yeah, I hadn't heard nothing about it either until it was December of 2017. I was just going through and happened upon Richie from Boston. I didn't even know who he was. And when I heard that case, I'm like going, what? No. And so I watched the documentary, and as soon as I started watching this, red flags were flying up everywhere. I'm like, this is not right. But again, it was the same thing then as now. It was Dan Sr.'s face. How I can't even describe what his face is just telling me he doesn't believe David did it. Of course, I don't believe he did it. He didn't do it either, just because of what I found. But yeah, I just don't believe even his own dad believes he's guilty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was, I don't know if anybody else is, right now it's just me, Catherine, and Lisa. We have a few other people. If anybody else wants to join in, please feel free to just kind of chime in here, tell us what your name is, or give us some type of name or something. And, we just want this to be just a general chat here to see, and if you have any questions for us, or if there's things that you've been wondering about this case, we'd love to talk about those things. The documentary, I guess it's a documentary. Technically, it is a documentary. But whatever your view is,
I like your term.
It's floppumentary.
The floppumentary.
There was a few other terms out there, I think, but I do recall Eric Nelson actually referenced that while he rolled his eyes and said some people call it a sloppumentary. I think Eric Nelson has been watching us, not looking at the facts, not looking at the data, but looking at us. And I think that was the big thing that I figured out when a guy named Robert Erickson, not Eric Nelson, but a guy named Robert Erickson, he is the one who came to a family house because I would not let him come to my house. And after hearing what happened at Dan Hennen's house, I'm glad that I didn't. Sorry, say again?
I said right. That was disgusting.
It was terrible.
What happened at Dan's house?
So somebody apparently, there were a couple things stolen, and Dan's not sure, if that was related, whatever. Okay, let's just, whatever. Somebody took a dump in the upper portion of his toilet. So when Dan Hennen went to go flush his toilet, poop came out. You know how water comes out or whatever. Now Chris Peck was one of the lighting guys. Nobody told Dan Hennen that. Nobody told anybody that. And so it was things like that I was like, okay, because they would have tried that, there would have been some big issues.
Yeah.
And that stuff like that is totally uncalled for. And Dan Hennen didn't say anything for maybe like a year or something later. He just kind of mentioned it, and I was like, wait, what? Back up. And I know Dan has joined us. I think Taylor has joined us. A few other people have joined us too. So I want to kind of let everybody here talk. Welcome, everybody. And like I said, we do not have anybody on mute. So if you're doing any background noise, please try to mute yourself. If I do that, I think you can still unmute yourself even if I do that. So, but if anybody wants to jump in here, wants to say hi or kind of chat or have any questions, anything, please just kind of jump in here. If you leave something in the chat that you want to let people know, or if you have something that you want to say, we want to make sure that you have a couple minutes to say whatever you want. Everybody gets shy all of a sudden. All right.
Hello, this is Dan. I'm here. Sorry I was running late, but
it's all good.
I am here now, and welcome to everybody else.
Yeah, we were just talking about you.
Excellent.
Behind your back.
Right. We were saying that we beat the teacher to the classroom.
That's right.
Oh, perfect.
We're taking over. Yeah, so we're talking about the documentary, and I was going into when they came to my house, or to my mom's house, basically. I would not let them come to where I was living for multiple reasons, but that's when I realized that they had not done any research. They were not researching the David Crowley case. They were researching the people that were researching the David Crowley case. Did you feel like that too?
Yes, yeah, they weren't. Of the 2 hours of the interview that I gave on of my side of the story from basically forensics and what we thought and some of our concerns, they were more interested in I think the 2 sentences of the clips that they used in the actual documentary, and they kept trying to get my thoughts on Judy, my thoughts on the family, my thoughts on more of the conspiracy kind of aftermath. And I said, I just kept focusing on, here's the facts. It doesn't take a genius to start looking into some of these facts, and it just simply doesn't add up. So I stressed that we should get a new investigation, a fresh investigation, because the evidence didn't lead down the path that David, Crowley did anything wrong. But they weren't really interested in hearing that. And just when I jumped on the call here, I know you were talking about the Chris Peck, and that sure enough, I found out later that he was actually in my house as part of the team. So very strange that they wouldn't talk about those things. Kept sliding the interview into what are my thoughts on other things, and as it came out in the finished final product, we see that it was a form of a propaganda piece that was really done by Eric Nelson and his team. We had the article by Alec Wilkinson, Death of a Dystopian, in the New Yorker magazine, that was done much the same way, which to find out later that those were 2 companion pieces, I think, that were put together for the national public, for the regular unsuspecting public, to get a feel for what happened. And both of those pieces really were taking cuts at the conspiracy theorists and discrediting everybody is all that those 2 pieces really did. We weren't notified that when the filming was done, we weren't notified that it's going to hit the Netflix, and when the premiere was going to take place. The other folks involved were aware of all of those things and were given updates. Even the Alam family down in Texas was nice enough that they were at least given a preliminary draft. They were sent a link to watch the original A Gray State uncut or the uncensored version, and that's when Mr. Alam and Komel's sister Sidra said this is not at all what we were looking to be, or not under at all the impression we thought this direction of this documentary was going to take. You're basically blaming, David as a nut job, and our sister and our daughter, Comel, was a nut job, and both of them were nut jobs, is how this is going. So they said they didn't want any part of it, and that's when they wanted to get those pieces removed. All the footage from the father and Sidra were yanked out of that film. They did not sign off on anything. So they used some extra interviews that they used, I think, with Comel's friend to fill those spots. But once they knew that they were not happy with the final outcome, Eric Nelson and the team did not even as much as send them any further updates to say it's going live, here's the premiere, here's the dates, here's the final version of what it looks like. They cut them out altogether. So this, I believe, was a propaganda piece that put out there.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Why would they spend so much money, a lot of money, and so much time on that? Why not put that time and that money towards saying, okay, well, this is what these documents say. This is what it was all just fluff and just a pile of crap.
Well, when you dive into the realm of propaganda, propaganda leads one, or Operation, Project Mockingbird, and some of those types of things are projects that are done at the CIA level, at the intelligence level, using black funds with unlimited funds. So, Greg, you're exactly right. Who would fund and who would put their time, energy, and resources to put out a propaganda a piece like this? Nobody would do that. Now, because it's propaganda, you've got unlimited funds. You've got black budget funds to be able to do this and to be able to pull this off and to have lengthy articles like the New Yorker, which is also a propaganda run magazine, and a film like this where Eric Nelson and the rest of the staff were probably handsomely paid for their efforts here, because it was exactly that, a propaganda piece. Now, if I make the generalization that this was propaganda done by the CIA, people will typically go down the road to say that this triple homicide was also a CIA hit as part of a professional wet work team, and I'm not going that far to say that. I think that the propaganda piece was to steer the narrative in a certain direction in the aftermath of the killings, but I'm not going on record saying that this was a professional CIA hit, because I don't personally believe that it was. But for some reason, that's the question you've got to ask yourself, is why would the CIA, or why would propaganda outlets, which involve federal intelligence agencies, want to put forward a propaganda piece and spend money to have that done and have it played out that way? So they're covering up something. The question is, was it the murders themselves, or was it something else that went on where this story goes much deeper than that? And that's where I think the folks on our page and those critical thinkers like ourselves are out to think about. Why would an agency, an intelligence agency, get involved in a case like this if they didn't commit the killings? It certainly wasn't done by a professional wet work team that does these types of things. If you look into the Philip Marshall killings, where they did the same thing to his family out in California in February of 2013, that was a single gunshot to all the victims. No one heard anything. Gun was laid there. Everyone dead, including the family dog. Problem solved. And here we get to what appears to be amateurs involved in the Crowley case. And so that's the real question. And that's what leads in my mind, set, and the people that I talk to about this Crowley case, is you've got two events. You've got the murder itself, the homicide of these three in Apple Valley, Minnesota, and then you've got the cover-up. And then the cover-up is where you get the propaganda push. You get the big article from People magazine, the New Yorker, and the New York Post, and then you get this Netflix movie documentary that they went so far as to enroll themselves into the documentary of the year in the Oscars. Well, they obviously didn't win. They weren't even a finalist, but they were nominated. I mean, they had votes. They entered. Someone on the team entered them as the documentary of the year for the Oscars. So they wanted to push this big time. They wanted to get the viewers and people to see this, because what I think the goal was to put all of us to bed. And the problem is, because that backfired, I think is where you're seeing the direct result of the huge number of increase to our members on the page, with people coming to our page saying, I just got done watching that movie and now I'm stuck scratching my head because the documentary doesn't make any sense. It doesn't flow. The timeline's wrong. Things don't add up. So that's where I think they shot themselves in the foot.
Yeah, and we had we're talking with Lisa, and she's one of those people who that's where she first heard about this, was through that, and there it is.
Well, and I find it interesting, too, that they're so quick to call anyone who's actually investigated this case the conspiracy theorist. Those of us who actually have read the documents, we've, done the research, we're the ones who don't know what we're talking about. Those who haven't read anything, looked into anything, they don't even know the facts of the case. They're the ones who have all the real story. And the silence, that's what tells me that there's more to this than just the police making a mistake. There's silence everywhere. I have gone to every official. The only people I have yet to go to is the Department of Justice and to the governor. No, I think I might have contacted the governor of Minnesota. I've contacted everyone, and no one, not even the newspapers, are responding. It is dead silent.
And I think that's our other clue for us following the case, is that when everyone else shuts up like this and we don't hear a peep out of anybody, there's your telltale sign that this entire case has been compromised and no one's allowed, keyword is allowed, to touch this with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah. And so that's what makes me wonder. It's like, I agree with you. This doesn't look like any type of a professional hit at all, but yet it's professional after the fact. So whoever did it has some, deep friends, and they're covering for them, and for whatever reason, I have no idea.
I think the next logical step is to, because if you get something, a local case like this, that I'll call it just a triple, homicide, to have sway or pull or control or power in the aftermath, like we've seen here, at a federal agency level, we only can look then at who's got the federal agency connections in the Gray State Project or the aftermath or the neighbors. And so once we start looking at that, we have found that there's federal agency connections with folks like Sean Wright, Eric Sayward. We've got connections to that effect. We've got the neighbor of the family, killed was the Prochnows, Judy, who, as a member of the department, the electronic surveillance program, and her own son, Eric, who's employed by the Department of Homeland Security and works for FEMA. So we've got all these players that are loosely connected together, but have federal agency connections. And that is not a normal thing in a normal homicide.
No.
Definitely.
No, and it's not normal how they reacted either. Now, I guess the question would be, is it normal for how people working for the federal government or working as informants, does this line up with how they would react to a situation like this?
And what I think, if there were federal informants either on the upside or the down low of being an informant, neither of which would react in any way. They would be told by their handlers to shut up and not say anything. And so what I think we've got here is not official informants per se that are credible CIs or confidential informants, but people working loosely under the table. And because of that, they are free to throw about threats and throw violence in the mix and make threats and keep railroading this case, like what we saw with Sean Wright and the threats that came from him, Eric Sayward, and those other types of individuals. A professional informant would know better than to do that. These guys, I think, were making the threats because they know that someone else had their back. They know that there would be no repercussions for making the threats. They're protected at some level. They had someone watching their back. They had someone protecting them. Normally in a case like this, with us being transparent on our page, where we post every screenshot, every instant message, every phone call, everything that's done in our communications with us. That's why I thought it was so bizarre to get these direct threats. They seem to not care what the repercussions even were. Eric Sayward's threats to me was on a YouTube actual video that he published.
Yep,
And
I saw
so,
that one.
And so that's actually out there. Him threatening me on an actual YouTube, video. Now, I can't believe the behavior that someone would actually, do something like that. But the only conclusion that I can draw personally is that they have no fear of retaliation. They have no fear of being in trouble. They've got no fear of being reprimanded. And both of these guys are on many years of probation already. They already have probation officers watching their every move.
So they're compromised.
And so my only conclusion, and I think it's a safe one, is that they're compromised somehow.
Interesting.
So that's just an observation. I think that's a safe bet. I can't prove that. Even if we had evidence, we couldn't prove that because that's how those operations are run. That there's no way there's plausible deniability. You'll never be able to prove that at all.
Yeah, and I like what one of the people in the chat wrote. I don't know if they want me to say their name or not, but they said, wasn't the intended audience for the original Gray State those who would be considered conspiracy theorists or free thinkers? Yet these are the very people attacked by the Gray State movie with these ridiculous labels and stereotypes. And that's exactly it. I mean, David was trying to put out there, how conspiracy isn't a theory but is actually a truth. And now this Gray State movie on Netflix is just making fun of everybody, and David himself too.
Correct, and I think that if David Crowley would be rolling in his grave if he ever saw this documentary, because it's a direct shot against him and his movement and the project itself.
Yes.
Everything that he was trying to promote in his documentary and his project and his movie was everything that this very documentary makes fun of.
Yeah. And it's just mind-boggling. And Gigi has a question here. She says, I'm not accusing anyone, but has anyone discussed that David taught all of his friends and people in his circle how to pull this off? He told them what to do and how to do it in the trailer. Also, he trained people how to use weapons for movies. Now, I've thought about that too, like how ironic it would be to teach someone, what it is that you need to do because they covered, obviously, murders in the movie, and then have those same people who you were teaching these moves to and these plots, to do the movie with, and then they turn around and do that to you and your family to try to set you up. I'm sure David knew. He obviously knew when they were killing him. Imagine what he was thinking. All of the betrayal and the why did I, what do I do now? It's too late. My family suffers.
And I think, and my personal belief on that, Catherine, is that David was bright enough to start putting the pieces together, and I think he saw that the walls were closing in on him and his family by his very own insiders. And insiders includes people on the project and his family members. So I think he saw the betrayal coming, and he started cutting himself off because he knew that there were snakes in his inner circle that were betraying him and planning to betray him, and he put that all together. But yes, he certainly would have been surprised during the torture and during the killing, during the acts of all those things going on. I still think it probably just blew his mind that this was all going on.
And
to the very people that he instructed, mentored, taught, and he he led all these people to further their careers and everything, and they really, yeah, it was not good. Let's put it that way. Go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. What I was going to say. I had an old person moment.
Have we thought about the fact that even whenever, like, obviously David had trained all of these people, but have we ever thought that maybe if he did actually train them and they were friends and whatever and he knew them, he would let them into the house willingly?
Yes.
Exactly.
Definitely.
Just because, like, obviously, like, if somebody comes up to your door and you know them, you're going to let them in, correct?
Exactly,
but the only thing that boggles me with that is the fact of the back door, the sliding door, right?
Yeah, why leave it open?
Exactly, unless they left through the back door and left it open too much. But was there footprints? I can't remember.
There were tracks, but I mean, again, we're talking about snow, and we're talking with Taylor. Taylor, thanks for joining us here.
Yeah.
And yes, there were also lots of there were tracks back there, but depending on the snow level and all that, the police just kind of blame themselves for those tracks, and it's never really followed up on either.
And that was something that I read in the reports too, because when you read some of them, the officers, and I can't remember which one, so I'm not going to say exactly, but they'll write the snow was fresh, there were no tracks except for animal tracks, and then the next one comes along saying that all of the snow was trampled down around the house and especially on the deck. Well, that's a huge difference. You know,
I was just
so I don't. And with the back door being left ajar, we don't know. It's a possibility that whoever did this kept coming back in the middle of the night when nobody would know.
Yeah.
Back and forth, in and out.
Well, and even, like, I don't know. It just, I don't know. Something, to me, like, if you think about it, I mean, if he did train them and, like, somebody he knew came in and did all this, wouldn't they want it to be covered up and make everybody think that it was David?
Yes.
So basically, the book was, I think the book of whatever for her religion wasn't it on the ground?
Yes, the Quran.
Yeah. So somebody would have been able to look for that book, find the book, write whatever they found or whatever they could translate or something like that on the wall to make it look like David did it. And then kill him last, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. That's where they really messed up when they staged it. They went way too far. I mean, ridiculously too far, because anyone that's a Muslim would never ever treat the Quran in that way, ever. I mean, They would be put to death for how that Quran was treated. And you know, writing on the wall. I mean, I have seen, and I know people who've gone to scenes where, you know, you have these honor killings, and not once have I ever seen any family member write on a wall in blood.
Well, exactly, and even with the book, like, if you think about it, I know that we had kind of jumped around at one point about, like, the father doing something. I can't remember what we were talking about. I think it was the father, maybe we were talking about him at one point, but then that brings me back to he wouldn't disrespect the book like that. So
well, yeah, and then there are people that were associated with David that have and practice the Muslim faith, but yet they never talked about that. And in fact, I contacted one of them and I said, hey, how come you never told me? You know, you contacted me, so why didn't you ever tell me that, you know, you had a Muslim faith? And they just wrote back going, you are sick. And I'm like, really? I'm sick?
Yeah.
Wow.
Also, another question, it's completely off topic, but I had heard somebody say, I think it was Dan, if I'm not mistaken. I heard you say something about Judy Prochnow working in like video surveillance type thing, or someone around working in video surveillance. But did we ever look and see if there were any kind of like video cameras anywhere that could see the Crowley house?
I can answer that. This is Dan. I think police looked for that in the surrounding the neighboring homes to see if there was any surveillance set up to be able then to use those cameras. But we know that the officers already had their minds made up. I think Greg said 48 hours. So I don't think they may have done a quick sweep around there to see if there was anything, but they weren't too interested, even if they would have found something, to pursue it. And I don't see anything to support that in the paperwork or the reports that they went through and did this type of thing. They interviewed and talked with the neighbors, but nothing was said or speculated the fact that they went in and tried to download surveillance of that time frame. It also could be because they knew they were dealing with a 3-week time period, and that'd be a lot of footage to go through, but that would have been very interesting. And I did make the comment about Judy. Her law enforcement interview on the Apple Valley Police Report shows under the section of other, it gives an acronym that says RESD, and that stands for Resident Electronic Surveillance Department. That's a program that came about after the Patriot Act was enacted after 9/11. Falls under the program of Department of Homeland Security, and so she is a member of that, and it doesn't not mean that she works for them or is employed by them, but what they do is for those people involved in that program, they are paid. They are paid for that. So she works officially as I think the president of Valley Construction Supply Company, and which she claims is a million or a multi-million-dollar business that she's run for many years or many decades, and who knows. So some would consider that a front, a company anyway. That, but who knows? I don't want to speculate there. But we do know from the law enforcement paperwork that that program shows up on her underneath her name.
See, that's what makes me so angry about this case is like the fact that the police just walked in and instantly it was a suicide or it was a murder-suicide, and like we didn't really care about this. They basically, in my opinion, they basically destroyed any kind of evidence we could have gotten of footsteps outside, like footprints, shoe tracks, anything like that. The inside, like obviously they didn't care very much about the inside of there. They didn't look for any security footage at all. And I mean, in my opinion, David was a very, I don't know a different word to use, but sketchy person. Like he was very protecting the family and everything else. And in my personal opinion, like I don't see him not having any kind of camera around the house. Or like anybody around the house having no security footage or anything like that. Not, I don't know, that just kind of, that just doesn't feel right to me, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I agree with you, because most people, once they start feeling, like the people that are around you are not trustworthy, and especially when it comes to the fact that his daughter was so young, and David would be proactive. I could easily see him getting a camera and then installing a camera inside his house. And is that why those guys, we don't know, this is pure speculation, but is that why they were going up in the attic to get the camera?
Exactly.
Did they come in and take it out?
Yeah, and that's what I'm thinking. Like, another thing, like complete speculation, of course, like whatever, but whenever you said that Julie worked, or not Julie, oh my gosh, whenever you said Judy works in that kind of like employment type thing, that it just kind of clicked in my head. I was like, wait, did we ever look for video footage? Because like, even if there wasn't a camera in the house, like could she have had any access to anything? Pure speculation. I don't know. But, like, I don't trust her. I don't trust Judy at all. And it makes me nervous because that 911 call, oh my gosh, But anyway, that pure speculation, that's just my thoughts. I don't like Judy at all, so I don't trust her. That's just my opinion.
I hear you.
But I don't know. I think, like, maybe there is a very big, in my mind, possibility that David could have had, he could have had some kind of camera, and because they just kind of skimmed over it, didn't even care about it, murder, suicide, this is that, he killed his family, blah, blah. We don't really care about whether or not we have footage. And if we do have footage and we just want it to be a murder, suicide and get it over with, what's saying they wouldn't go upstairs and take it? Right?
Right.
Yep.
So
yeah, because they certainly didn't write about the bullet hole in the ceiling.
Exactly. Like,
well, there was one photo that looked like it was taken from David's doorbell. So I was wondering if maybe he had a doorbell cam. But this I know you guys have talked about this for years, but it really brought it back when I was looking at the Chris Watts case. And that's how they caught Chris Watts, where he took out it was basically his neighbors had cameras.
Yes.
And it's not mentioned in the David Crowley case, it's not mentioned if any other neighbors did have any cameras and how common that would have been during that time. So I don't know, Dan, do you know, is it normal in Minnesota? Because in California, I would say it's probably it should be normal. If you're not doing it, you should.
Well, here's what I think. This was taking place in the fall of 2014, and so in that time frame, it wasn't too popular to have any of those things. Especially the doorbell stuff isn't even popular now. I don't think that popular. The surveillance cameras are gaining in popularity. But I think the good point to realize with David Crowley in the field that he was in and the project that he was putting working towards, it would have been safe to say that he would have invested in those surveillance cameras, not high-tech ones that he would have installed on the exterior of his home, drilling in and doing that. But he may have had portable ones in various spots of his home. That's the type of thing that we have to look in the crime scene photos for what's not there. And those things could have all been cleaned up and taken out. David Crowley was good at recording his day-to-day activities on his cell phone. So it leads one to speculate that he probably was recording and surveilling up everything else to hard drives as well. Who knows what was taken from the home before police got there? That's the question. If he would have been surveilling and keeping and recording things, not only would the cameras be gone, but the hard drives where all that stuff, all the storage, all that media would have been saved to was also gone. And so by the time police get there, those things are all gone as well. Now, just a quick thing back to that sliding glass door that you mentioned, Taylor, a few minutes ago, is I don't think the killer or killers entered through the through the sliding glass door or exited through the sliding glass door. More than likely, they came in through the front door and left through the front door, or in through the garage and left through the garage. The question comes in, because if they were there and they were let in, they probably drove to the site and David, let them into the house because there was no forced entry. The question that I think that Catherine brought up is that because that door was open, leads me to believe that people were traveling in and out multiple times. It wasn't just a hasty getaway where they left that back sliding glass door open, because they probably just drove out, from a vehicle in the driveway when they left. But for the time in between is when people were, I think, coming and going, and that leads back to that what went on for 3 weeks. How many times did the killer or killers return to the scene? Did they stay for an extended period of time? did they come and go multiple times? And I think that's where the mistake was made by someone leaving that door open.
Now, did Judy ever say anything, or any of the neighbors ever say anything about seeing somebody consistently? Or did the police just never ask in their reports?
Seeing somebody consistently going back and forth in the Crowley house?
Yeah, like visiting, whatever, because like if you killed someone, or like in my personal opinion, like if I were to murder someone and then decide to just continuously go back to my crime scene, wouldn't you make it look like you're going to visit?
Yeah,
Actually, I wouldn't want anybody to know I was there. I would do it by night so they wouldn't see me.
That's very true. But that brings me back to the freaking cameras, because the cameras would have caught it.
Yes.
That's what annoys me. I just want to know if there were cameras. Oh.
Did they ever talk to the guy that lived behind him? You know, and at one point where they kind of made eye contact.
Across the street, Brent Melee.
Was that across the street? I was thinking that was behind his house.
I don't think there was anybody behind.
Yeah, there was a daughter and a father that were talked to that lived behind where the Crowleys were, that said that they would have seen any lights. If any lights would have came on, they would have seen them, and they didn't see any lights since December 19th. Or something like that. I mean, yeah, it is December 19th. But the guy that made eye contact with David is the guy who lived across the street from David.
Okay.
So,
and he moved really quick too, didn't he?
I don't think he moved. I think he just either he wasn't there when the police showed up, or he said that he moved, and I don't know. I don't think.
I don't think he wanted to be involved.
Well, I can't blame him for that.
Well, no, of course not, because then he'd be dragged all in the documentary too. But anyway, we're not going to get onto that right today. So basically, I don't know. I feel like he may have. I don't know. I feel like he might have seen something and just didn't want to talk about it because he didn't care enough. But then I feel like we're this far. Like how it was 2014, right? We're like 5 years. I'm pretty sure somebody would have came forward if they would have seen anything, unless they don't want to be dragged in social media and the news and with his family and like everything else. Like I don't know, and that the fact that he just like either said he moved or he just wasn't home or something like. The police should have tracked this man down. If his stuff is still in the house, obviously he has not moved.
And I'm not really sure why they went back. That's the other thing. Why even go back for that second time? What did they want to follow up on? And I think it's because Brett was the last guy to see David, to see him, right? And it is kind of odd and coincidental that they have the same birth date. That's pretty odd. Brett is also really tall. He's like almost 7 foot tall, by the way.
Holy
tall dude.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. I don't know. This is just making me angry now. Like, if I was an investigator, I would go like 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, 4 day until like my time was up and like I knew what happened. I would continuously go back. Like I wouldn't instantly just. Like 48 hours is a little too fast for me.
Well, and I still hold the one newspaper article, since everybody wants to believe the newspapers and the online reporters. They said that the police chief said that within 2 hours they determined David was guilty.
How?
And I'm like, really? I wouldn't be bragging about that comment, dude. That just means you didn't do your job.
Okay. Okay. Now I'm just angry. Okay. So basically, like, I've talked about this in the past. Like, I've gotten into the Stephen Avery case, like Making a Murderer. I've gotten into his case and whatever and blah, blah. They're still looking into this case.
Yes.
They're still you're still looking into this case. There's no way you can solve a murder or a suicide even in 2 hours.
Right, exactly.
You can't. You physically, mentally, emotionally, you cannot. And even for him to publish this big thing about, oh, we figured this out in 2 hours, I'm sorry, excuse my language, but it's bullshit. You walked in there and you knew that it was, or you thought you knew it was a murder-suicide, and you decided on the spot. There's no 2 hours about it. You decided probably within 45 minutes of being in there. And honestly, in my personal opinion, the only reason that you guys think it's a murder-suicide is because Judy called and she said it was a suicide. Can we go back to this for a minute? Because now I'm just triggered about it. Now I'm just mad about it because you call 911 and there's no way that you know that it's a suicide. And everybody that's listening, you can go on to the tape and you can listen to the 911 call, and she verbally, literally says, "Oh, there was a suicide." No, Judy, it wasn't a suicide. Just
Well, she does say murder or suicide. She leaves it open. It's
but
like
she still says, "You."
She does say, yeah. She says, "I think there's been a murder or a suicide next door," or something like that.
Yeah, and why would she jump to that? There's absolutely no logical explanation for that at all. None.
Like, I'm sorry, you call 911, you're like, "Hey, my neighbors are dead." Not, "Hey, my neighbors have been murdered or committed suicide."
Right.
Or start speculating on who committed
And I think
murder
the dog ate their head.
Yeah, but what?
Yeah, Judy speculated that too. The dog ate their head.
And like, honestly, everything that I can.
But then they didn't even analyze the dog poop. That's
Exactly.
crazy.
That's weird.
Crazy.
That's
And I mean,
odd.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, like, I'm sorry, maybe going through dog feces isn't your favorite thing to do, but it's for an investigation, and that's what you do. That's your job.
Yeah, the bare minimum they could have done was X-ray the dog, but they did nothing.
That would be one of the good questions to ask Gummert, because maybe they did, and they just.
Well, I couldn't find it in any of the reports at all.
Yeah, I can't find it mentioned either. But I think he would answer it. I think he would answer that question.
Well, he's not talking to me anymore, Greg, so I think you might have to contact him.
I will. I'll call. I've been meaning to. I just try not to really bug him, because when I do contact him, he does answer, and so I don't want to. I want to make sure, because he does have other things going on and stuff too, and I don't want to get in the middle of anything with that. But so far, every time that I've contacted him, which has only been a very few times, he has answered those questions, and they have those answers that he's given me have helped. And I think at least if we can get some type of an answer, I think that would really help. So yeah, I can take that on. Just
okay, good.
Yeah, I will.
I love.
Hey, I gotta hop off, you guys. It's been great talking to you.
Thanks you for joining.
Okay, bye-bye.
I absolutely love the fact that in the popular topics and posts, you have sloppumentary as one of them. I love that. I'm sorry, I was just looking on the Facebook page. That makes my day so much better, because, like, oh my lord, let's click on it. Let's see what's on here.
Can I interrupt for a moment?
Yes, please.
Miss Bucknell's son hasn't been spoken about too much. Wasn't he there during the holidays?
I can't verify that. I don't know if anybody else has any other views on that. I haven't researched it. If I ever got the chance to talk to him, that would be one of the questions that I would ask him. That was on my list of questions when he sounded like we were gonna have a recorded chat, and maybe that will still happen. I think once he calms down a bit. I don't want to talk to people.
What was the question?
Was Eric Crossnell at Judy's house at his mom's during the holidays?
Yes. He arrived from California on December 20th. We've got the screenshot on his Facebook saying he just arrived into town, and he took off on, I think, January 7th of 2015. So he was there during the alleged triple homicide, and that's a fact.
That's what I thought.
And that's a
Well,
big, that's
comes
a
into
glaring
mind being
fact for police to look into and investigate, and simply just to question him about that. The question remains is that the Apple Valley Police Department don't officially know that he was even there because Judy and Colin never offered that information. And that's, I think, the other reason to raise the antenna back to Judy Prochnow is why hide that information?
I was wondering whether he was maybe the one that had done all this, being he might not like Muslims and all that.
So why do you think he doesn't like Muslims? Why do you say that?
Well, I don't know. It's just something that popped in my head. I've read up on him a little bit, and
because I haven't heard that yet.
He just sounds suspicious to me, being next door and all that.
Yeah, I'll add that to my questions. Hopefully we can get some
I mean,
answers.
he would have had free access to the house and all that.
Now that you've mentioned Eric Prochnow, I just want to, I don't know. I didn't even know that he was there, in all honesty. I kind of went IMO, or MIA. Is that what it is? Mm-hmm. I don't know. I kind of went MIA for at least a year. So I'm kind of behind on everything, but I don't know. I'm just stalking his profile right now, but like he kind of throws me off. He doesn't really. I can see why she's saying that he doesn't really like Muslim. I don't know. To me, I just get that vibe off of him. In my opinion, like it's just, I don't know.
Well, I mean, like, I'm a Christian. I'm sure there's people out there that are going to say that I don't like Muslims, just because I'm a Christian. So I'm just curious about that. But I think it's we can all have our opinions on that, I guess.
No,
he would just go ahead.
No, you go ahead. You were on topic.
He was just a shady character to me, and it made me think, because I had heard that he was there, and he would have had access to the house, being next door.
What's the motive?
Sounds like Judy was covering for him, and she probably knew about it. I don't know. Now, that's just something that popped in my head.
No.
How did she know it? How did she know everything she knew?
Good question.
So just if I can ask, how do you think she covered up for him? If I can ask.
About all the information that she was giving out in the 911 call.
True. Very true.
Yeah, she was painting a very descriptive picture.
That's another thing.
Way too much information she gave out.
Yeah.
Right. And how did she know all this?
True.
Because she didn't know them.
Right.
I mean, she hadn't had any all that much communication with them.
Now, Dan, you said he got there on the, what did you say, the 14th or the 20th?
22nd, I think is what he said.
I think he got there on the 20th of December.
Okay.
So that's Saturday.
Because
Go ahead.
Well, because one of the neighbors had said, I guess you had said earlier, one of the neighbors said that the last time they seen the lights on in the house was December 19th. So if he would have, in my own speculation, if he would have gotten there on the 20th, you would have seen lights on that day, right? On the 20th instead of the 19th.
On some day, yeah. Even Judy says there was no activity, or that's what she told the cops and all of these newspapers. There was no activity since before Christmas. Yet it's kind of like, okay, but yet they're telling us that David did this, that there was activity, there was internet activity inside of the house up until December 26th or something like that, which I'm still not kind of clear on either. Still find that a little odd that there's not more, that we don't have more data on that, on his last days. It looks like they just went to his Facebook picked up all of his Facebook stuff and just slapped it into a PDF or something. Well, I could have done that. I think we did do that. But they should have done a lot more, especially looking at all of that stuff.
The thing to consider with the Eric Prochnow case in this killing is the timeline. If we go by the official Appa Valley Police Department reports, then Eric Prochnow was there, and I think that he should have been brought in for a questioning or at least interviewed. In with all the other pool of suspects, not as a suspect, but of interested people to question. If we go back to the medical examiner who said that the bodies look like they've been there for 7 to 10 days at the most, then the killings then would have taken place after Eric Prochnow would have left the state. So he couldn't have been involved in the killings if we go to that scenario. And because he was gone when he was out of state when the killings actually took place. If you look at the Dr. Leon Kelly saying that it looks like the bodies are there up to a week, but not more than 10 days or something to that effect, means the killings could have taken place around January 10th. And he was gone.
Yeah, because their state of decomp is early to moderate. They were not very well advanced, and that was the thing that bothered me about the police report. Is every single one of them, I mean, just like a recorder, advanced state of decomp, advanced state of decomposition, and they were so wrong it wasn't even funny. Those bodies were not in an advanced state.
And so that and that definition of advanced is that's where the question comes in. 21 days, were they dead 21 days? Which means that whoever took the arm off of Ranny's arm, it seems to me like that would have been done something later, which means that the killer or killers returned to the scene and did some of the torture or in the aftermath. When the bones are brittle and the body's decomposing, it would have been relatively easier to pull that arm off.
Yeah.
Rather than doing it right after.
At the state of decomp that they were, it still would have been an extremely difficult thing to do. Those ligaments.
We got the broken rib, so it was very
the fractured rib.
tough.
Yeah.
The fractured rib, it was still tough. Whoever did that.
Yes.
It was not an easy task, but it would have been
Correct.
easier to do it later. Now it does look like Ranny's body was moved, which leads one to suspect that she was laying on her stomach when she was dead or killed, and you can see the bodily fluids going to the lowest elevated location on the bodies where they were settling, but the picture shows her laying on her side, which means that I think it's safe to say that whoever came back and pulled that arm off was at a later time, I believe, and then shifted that body. So now she's laying on her side. And there's some speculation, too, that the police moved the body. So the question is, we don't even have an image of what the bodies look like or where the weapon was laying in situ. All we have is some various photographs of things, but we don't know. They don't even have the CAD drawing of the crime scene of the bodies that matches up with the pencil drawing of where the bodies were positioned. So we've got multiple things that just simply don't add up, and they can't be written off or explained away as a simple mistake.
Right, but there is one photo that they released, and I'm not sure they realized what they gave out. And if you look carefully, you can see Kamel and you can see Rania lying on her side between her legs. I mean, you when you look at it, and then you put that with the initial sketch where they show Kamel on her stomach, Rania on her left side, and then David like that. I mean, it matches that really close. But then, next thing you know, they have everybody else coming in, and one of those officers moved him, because that photo was taken right as they entered the house. And if you look right over the chair, you can just barely see Rania's little polka dotted shirt. And that is what tells me. So I go with whoever did that sketch. For me, I think that they were the most honest and the most correct in their description.
I just don't understand why there's not any more blood than what there was. I don't believe the killings happened there.
Yeah, and I agree. And what I want to know, too, and something that no medical examiner has been able to explain is why was lividity missing in all three? Not one of them had a line of lividity, and they should have. So there's only one way for that not to be there, and that's if most of their blood was gone before their heart stopped. You know, and it's like, come on, explain it. There should be lividity. But every single autopsy report says lividity is absent or not discerned.
Yeah.
Are we going to cue
That's
the cricket?
Sorry, I'm printing off
No, okay.
a calendar right now to be able to write down everything that's going on, or everything to document every what do you say, like all the dates and stuff. So I'm trying to do that so I can actually figure myself out instead of putting it into my phone and getting confused.
And I was looking at the supposedly footprints. There's other spots that look like that too, and they don't look like toe prints to me.
No, yeah, they're not, and I will take that to my grave. I just don't believe that they are footprints. I will never believe it. When I first saw it, and I saw a circle with a line going down, and I tell everybody, when you get out of the shower, put your foot on the floor. And compare that and tell me if it looks the same. There's no way. It just doesn't look the same. And those don't make a straight line.
There's not enough pressure points to show that it was fake.
Yeah, and especially the way it is on there, they're trying to make it look like the top of the ball of the foot. But even if you step only on your toes,
right,
there's going to be more of the ball of your foot that's going to be on the floor.
Right.
And then when they did when they sprayed the luminol, they didn't use luminol, they used another product, and I can't remember what it was called, but a luminol type product, you see the blood underneath it. When they take that initial photo and it looks quote unquote like footprints, and then they spray it, and then you see the blood that was not visible to the human eye, where it was cleaned up prior. And I'm like, that should have told the police right there that it wasn't footprints and that somebody planted that. But again, they just looked right past it.
Because there's other drops on the floor. The number 20 looks just like it.
Yeah, and that was something else.
Yeah,
I was talking to, and Dan or Greg, if you guys have, I think, Dan, you have the investigator friends or retired police officers, but I was talking to an officer, and they said regarding that blood drop in the kitchen, they said that their guess would have been that probably would have come from the perpetrator and not from one of the victims. And that drop was never tested. So have you guys, has anybody you've ever talked to ever said anything like that?
No, that's not that I'm familiar with.
No, I'm not sure about that one. I do know what you're talking about, though. The drops were
because it's right in front of the washer, the dishwasher, and then the one that's in the dishwasher. They said that looks like somebody who injured themselves and then was going to the sink or whatever to wash their hands. and they said that looked to them like what a passive drop or something like that. But they said their guess would be that would be from the perpetrator and not from one of the victims.
That would make sense. When you look at the and that blood, my guess is that blood is probably Kamel's blood, maybe. That's the only reason that I'm saying that is because the blood, I think the blood in the hallway, that was hers too, and that blood stain looks like the same one that's on the box of tissue next to that area. But it is curious that what they tested, but more so what they didn't test.
Yeah.
And there's so many things like that there's no reason not to test those. I don't understand it. They were looking for prints, for footprints, fingerprints, whatever it was, latent prints to match, and then at some point they just kind of stop, or they don't find anything that matches anybody. It doesn't match David, definitely.
Yep.
What about the blood on the corner of the chair?
On the corner of where?
There's massive blood on the corner of that chair. There's massive blood there.
Yeah, why would you not test that? That's one of the biggest things. It's probably the biggest blood stain in any of our photos that we have.
Yeah.
It would be the first thing you would test.
There's a lot of things I should have tested.
That's true.
I agree.
That's true.
Yes.
There should be blood all over that couch, and if there is, why didn't they test that either? They didn't test any of this other stuff. They only on that blood wall, they only tested one part. They took swabs from the letter A and from the letter B, but they only tested one. And they were going to do prints. They were doing latent match prints. They were trying to match the prints on that wall to David Crowley. And I think they figured out pretty quickly that they couldn't. So don't even go there. And they tried to hide that too. So it wasn't like they were worried about the public knowing that. The public was not supposed to really know that, at least not at that time. Maybe it was scripted to come out later when the sloppymentary was meant to come out, because I think a lot of things happened that when the sloppymentary, when the idea first came up for that, I think it's definitely not the plan that they started with. I think they had to pivot. I think they had to pivot a couple times and just kind of just dealt with it and just said, okay, bye. You know, they made that movie, they got people to talk about it, and that was it. I mean, you don't hear anything about it now. And
if you think about it, how much money did they make too?
That's a good question. Hopefully nothing. I hope they made nothing. I hope they lost money. I hope they lost a lot of money. I know they lost a lot of money coming out. I mean, when you really think about it, when they lost money, they should have lost money just by coming out and talking to myself and talking to Dan, because they spent all of this time, all of these people, paid all of those people, and what did they really get? What did they really use? A couple lines? A couple sentences? To me, that's a big loss, so I'm happy about that.
I just know it's all mind-boggling.
It is. And we'll just keep moving forward. Any other points anybody else has?
No, I don't think of.
Well, we can always come back and do this again. This has been interesting, and I'm thankful for all you guys who jumped on and were talking and putting in your input. Thank you.
Well, I still go over all the layouts and everything. I go through everything several times, and I'm still learning more and catching more.
Yeah, I am too.
But yeah, I enjoy these talks.
I do too.
And bless y'all for what y'all are doing.
Thank you.
Are we ending this now, or are we still talking?
Yeah, I think we're pretty much wrapped up. Unless you got anything else you want to finish us off with her.
My only question is what were the threats?
The threats from who?
I don't know. Dan was talking earlier about threats, and I was just confused.
There's been a lot of threats, I'm sure. I'm probably still getting threats, so that's why it's like, well, which one specifically? I don't know.
I don't know. I don't remember what the context was. I just want to know.
That's probably Dan. Dan gets all the.
Yeah, there were. I think in my case, the Eric Sayward one was just an instant message first, one day out of the blue, and it just simply said, if you mention one more thing about the David Crowley case, I will pay you a visit. And so they're not per se death threats or specific threats, but they're threats like that. Another one said, keep your head on a swivel. Sean Wright says, don't you dare show up to that memorial for the David Crowley family, or we will escort you out of there.
I will come from Canada and personally show up. Try me.
And so there were things like that that were just what I call threats in general, threatening behavior, very aggressive behavior that certainly isn't warranted or needed. And so, like Greg said, we've been getting those types of things on and off here for these 4 years. Just people just taking things too far that in a normal situation wouldn't be the case. If I had a close family member or someone that I worked with was killed in an unsuspecting way, would I react the same way to someone and make threats about what they're saying about that person on social media? I think I could care less. I don't think, put myself in the same position, I wouldn't be threatening people if I didn't agree with what they were saying, and especially if they were considered a nut job conspiracy theorist, I would just discount everything they said and wouldn't give them the time of day. So that's the difference, is why are they so upset that they're not only angry, but they're making threatening, aggressive comments on voicemails, instant message, texts, and things, and YouTube videos. I mean, that's the question. Why would you do that?
See, that's confusing to me because, if you have nothing to protect and you have nothing to watch out for, or if you have to literally get on to social media or call someone or do this, do that, then what exactly are you hiding? And another question is why are they still I can understand why in a family matter, but in my personal opinion, I don't know if they should continue with Grace dating.
Yeah, I don't think they should.
That kind of threw me off because I'm sorry, that is not your, and it's just my opinion, I don't want to pee anybody off or make anybody angry at me or send me threats or whatever. Well, you can send me threats if you want. You can't really do much, but anyway, my whole thing is that's not your place to be in. That's not your idea. That's not your thought process. That's not your project. And I can understand wanting to bring it and do everything for it for David. But in another sense is I don't think they're doing it for David. I think they're doing it for the money.
Yeah, that's my thought.
And that's another thing for me is that could possibly give me a motive for someone close to the project or someone that's money hungry or whatever. They could have completely gotten rid of David to get all of the money for the project.
So I never understood how they could say that David Crowley is guilty, but at the same time still want to move forward with this project.
Exactly.
Seems like they want to have it both ways. If David is a killer, why would you want to take that guy's vision and put it out there and blah blah blah? To me, I can never find a logical reason why they would do that.
And why would you want his name all over social media?
But if I do camera, will I see them?
Why would you want his name all over social media? Or if the movie did come out, why would you want that on the title? Why would you want to take a killer's name
Exactly.
and put it all over everything so that he gets more publicity. That to me, that just does no.
And then make money off of that. So
exactly.
Now you're making money off of a killer.
Exactly. Like you want to do something for him, make a documentary or something about his life and this and that. But if you think he's guilty, why are you using his name to get money or publicity for yourself?
Right.
To me, that makes you guilty in my own perspective.
I mean, you would only do that if the guy wasn't guilty.
Exactly.
I don't understand why you would do it if he is guilty. Here was a great movie that Ted Bundy made. Okay. Well, it's a great movie, and the other thing is also the content of David's movie too, right? Let's say David's movie, that the content of David's movie wasn't a movie about the government taking over. Let's say it was just some lighthearted comedy. It was a dramedy, something like that. I think it would have been a lot harder for them to really, claim that David Crowley was guilty. I think they would have had to have gone a lot further to prove that he was guilty, or to trick people into the fact that they proved that he was guilty, because they never proved it, and it's still not proven. The only problem is that they've never been pushed on it, and then they've never been pushed to really prove it. It was just kind of out there, which to me is another big red flag with the alternative media that's supposed to be on top of these things, that acts like they're on top of all these different cases, and here you have a slam dunk case, and nobody wants to touch it. Why? Because it's not gonna help you, because it's gonna hurt you. It's gonna hurt your credibility. Crap like that.
Exactly.
Okay.
I can't see David cutting off his right hand either.
No, especially he was right-handed.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I can't even use a mouse with my left hand, let alone cut my freaking hand off with a knife.
And that's...
Oh my gosh. I don't know. It's just the little things that tip me off that just kind of make me think a little more in depth about it.
The other thing that I would like to share is, in a case like this, you've got to put yourself in the mindset of the killer or the criminals,
right,
to see what they were thinking and why they were thinking it. So, Greg, when you make the statement that if David was the bad guy and he did this, why would you want to move forward with the gray states? That's easy for you and I and the rest of the critical thinkers out here to say, because that certainly wouldn't make sense. If after the Philip Marshall murders, there was no one there saying, "Hey, I'm going to publish his book that he was in the process of doing. I'm going to take it over and transcribe it." You don't want to have your name associated with that at all, of the killer. So that's something that these individuals didn't think about. They wanted to throw him under the bus because it served their purpose and helped their narrative, but they also didn't see the big picture of, why would you make money off someone that was a crazed killer? Now that also leads into the next layer of all of this, because why did you need the entire family killed? Why did you need the remaining heirs to David's asset? It's a fact that script was worth $30 million. Now, they're the first to tell you that there was no value of it, and they're not trying to make money off of it. But if you kill David, the script still falls into Kamel's hands, whether she does something with it or not. If David and Kamel are both killed, the script belongs now to the remaining heir. It's going to drop into Ranny's lap. Mm-hmm. So you've got to consider yourself in the mind of the killer and drop your IQ down a bunch of notches to get to where these people are at. Then you start to make sense in a non-rational mind. Let's kill the family. So the script now falls to Dan Jr. and Dan Sr., and then we're friends with him. This is the Gray State Project guys talking, allegedly, that they're friends with them. They can now take the script and move forward and make money off of it. So it answers all of your questions at once. At the same time, they're going to plead the narrative to the public that David did it to throw him under the bus because he's the lunatic, crazed nut job. So only thing with these answers that we're hearing, all of these answers and the evidence leads you to suspect of who really did it just by their actions. And so set yourself in the mindset of a criminal, drop your IQ down a bunch of layers to where these idiots are at, and that's how you start rationalizing what they were thinking when they were doing it. And in their mind, this all made perfect sense.
Right. And Dan, I want to throw in there too, and this, the term, I think you were the one who told me the term useful idiots. And
Yes.
This goes to show how uninformed they truly were, because I totally believe that that's what they thought, that this script would just get handed down and handed down. What they did not know is that's not how copyright works. Unless
Correct.
you take your writing and you specifically, legally give it to somebody, once you die, it still remains the writer's. And then it maintains copyright for 70 years after death. Nobody can touch that. But they didn't know that. And so these guys keep trying to still do stuff with Gray State. And that's why I put out there, it's like, you know what, if I see, you guys better prove copyright. Because right now it's copyright infringement. That still belongs to David and will belong to David for 70 years before it becomes public domain, unless at that point someone from David's family would have to pay to keep copyright going, or it becomes public domain.
Now, did we ever think about, or did the police ever find the actual script? And do we know who has
question.
it?
It's a great
question. Do
question.
we actually know who has it?
No. But my guess is that David's dad has it or had it, has access to it. That's a great question. Somebody has it.
In my opinion, if you're going to go ahead with Gray State, and you're going to go ahead and make the movie and shoot the rest of the scenes and everything else, where did you get the script? How did you find it? Because unless the police put it into their records or their files and then gave it to David's dad or whatever, where did it go?
Well, are you talking about the documentary, or are you talking about the movie that was turned into a TV series? Because two separate things here.
Well, because I don't know how to explain it. So they're obviously they're trying to go ahead with Gray State, right?
Yeah, but I don't know what script that they would use, because it's Danny Mason, so it would have to be a script, maybe an earlier version that Danny Mason was part of. I could see that. And it does sound like they tried to pitch it to the same people that David was actually working with, and they turned it down because of everything that's happening. I think what we've been looking for in these last 4 years, one thing we've been looking for is to see if there's any similar movies that have come out since then.
True. Very true.
There's some weird coincidences with some stuff. Nothing directly like it. There's been some weird things, I think.
I noticed at one point that they were I don't know what I seen, but they were trying to push to get the movie actually, on air and whatever. But that was another thing that came across my mind, was just okay, but I can understand if you have the past, the script in the past, but at the same time, do they really have the script in the past?
I don't know if they necessarily need the script. All they would need is the rights. Once they have those rights, they can adjust it, because the scripts are always changing. They're just ever changing. So it's more, I think, for them, it's more about having the actual rights and creating a story, having a story that they can sell to a Hollywood film company.
And Greg, if I could jump in, I think the other thing Taylor was getting at there was I think what the mindset of these folks is that there was multiple versions of this script floating around for the movie. There may have been multiple versions of the web-based, TV series or whatever, but I think in these individuals' heads, there was enough versions floating around electronically on the various hard drives. I'm sure they had them or acquired them or found them or got a copy, and they probably didn't care which version it was. They knew one of the versions was worth up to $30 million. So these guys weren't looking, I think, for the exact latest and greatest version. They just got their hands, their dirty little mitts on one of the versions is all that they needed, and they moved forward with it because that's all that they really cared about. And I think you see that $50,000 transaction for what allegedly could be hitmen or paid murder services. I think that also would have been a drop in the bucket because once they would have hit this jackpot with this movie, they could have reimbursed whoever funded and paid for the killers.
Yeah.
And so the $50,000 it seems like a lot, but when they knew they were going to be getting millions of dollars back, they would say, for instance, if this was a Dan Jr. to Dan Sr., don't worry, Dad, I'll replenish the funds. Don't worry about it. And so that's where you start to see the secrecy from the father, not wanting to allow this bank fraud to take place because that's going to now implicate his son. And now all you see from the Crowley family is all this silence. And so they're in so many layers deep with all of this deception. And so I think, but their thinking at the time was, let's pay off a person or two or three. Here's $50,000. Take out the whole family. The whole family needed to be killed. That's my opinion. It didn't aggravate a killing and ended up, out of sequence, killing them all by mistake. I think that was part of the plan to kill them all, and $50,000 certainly would fall in the ballpark of what it would cost to kill 3 people. Mm-hmm. So then I think they had this big dollar signs in their eyes for getting the rights to this, and then once it's all said and done, they were able to refund back and pay back whoever funded the hitmen. Now, if Dan Sr., if it comes out that money was used to fund a hitman, now that's in his personal account, he's going to be held in conspiracy with a felony himself, much less Dan Jr., who potentially withdrew that money with his father's name on it, facing bank fraud charges and conspiracy for a multiple homicide. So that's why I think we get this secrecy of what really went down. And what really went down is pretty, I think, easy to back into, because if a murder for hire case did take place, all those participants would have the exact same story, so they wouldn't get busted. Mm-hmm. And now, coincidentally, all we're hearing is the exact same story. David flipped out. He was nuts. His wife was hallucinating. They were taking drugs. He was drinking. He was using absinthe. And they just recently bought some weed. So everyone's story is the exact same, which sounds to me like they're purposely saying because that is their story, and that's what they need to have happen. Mm-hmm. Which means there's multiple people involved with this entire process. And that's why they're running scared now, because they've all been backed into the proverbial corner.
Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know if anybody's looked on the Gray State page lately. I'm looking at it right now, and if you actually go onto the page and you scroll down a bit, you can see they have literally pinned the Netflix sloppumentary.
You gotta be kidding me. I think
to the very top.
Page.
They have literally, here, I'll take a screenshot and I'll send it to you.
Yeah, I've been banned from their page.
They've literally, they've pinned it. I had just seen that, and that completely threw me off, because I was like, okay, but going back to the whole point of, if you don't want someone, if you don't want to show that you think he's, a killer, why is he? I don't know.
There's
why
148
is he
comments.
Yeah.
Wonder what they all are.
Where did that go? I was about to message it to you, and now I can't find it.
Oh, I got it here.
You found it?
Yeah, I found it. I don't see a lot of new comments.
No, I had just noticed that it's literally pinned to the top.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So hey, look at this.
That tells you all you need to know about them.
Yeah, look at this. The creator of this movie has killed his family and himself. Like, okay. So what does that tell you? Like, congratulations? I don't know.
It's just like a phishing thing where they just want to see, they're just looking, this is how they target people. This is how they could target real people on social media by their responses to this.
And, like, I don't know if you look on the page, just clouding himself, over on the side of the page it says, page is liked by this page, and it's
I saw that.
First thing, Danny Mason.
Danny Mason, yeah. Tells you who's running this page here. I would also be curious to see how many comments have been taken out, because a lot of these, some of these are like, wait a minute, and it's like, oh yeah, he was distancing himself, he's guilty. This is.
I just left a comment.
Did you? Wait, you're banned now.
I know.
It's over for you.
I can't even. Where's your comment? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? I want to see it. I want to see. I want to see.
It's there.
I can see everything. I just can't comment on their page anymore.
I can't see it. It won't show me. No.
I just put this quote unquote documentary does not contain anything. Oh, I need to. I see. I made a typo. Anything factual found at the crime scene.
Oh,
God forbid, they're probably going to sue you for a typo. Oh my God.
See, she can't even type right.
I know, and I put this documentary is what convinced me David is a victim of murder and not the killer, which is true. I saw that, and that when I watched that, I was like, that's when I went and I found you, Dan, and Greg. Found you both, and I'm like, okay, you guys, what can we do here?
Yeah. I'm wondering what's actually on their Instagram feed right now. Oh, look, it's not available. Oh, congratulations, your page sucks.
Yeah, this is weird. Their whole page is weird.
Yeah.
It looks like the last post they made was on August 25th, 2018.
Yeah. That's
John McCain. Okay, guys. Really? Okay. Let's go look up some of David's views on John McCain. I'd be curious to see how that lines up.
Actually, that's a great idea. Let's do this.
Yeah, sure, find some interesting stuff there. Who's watching this? Why would anybody watch this? It's garbage.
Okay, so
well, in a way, I have to. I'm serious. I have to be grateful that they put out that slopumentary. That's like the best coined phrase I've ever heard. Because if it wasn't for that, I would never have paid any more attention to the case. I just would have looked right past it.
Yep.
But when watching what they did, and I'm like, wow, this is so messed up, and nothing adds up. I'm like, okay, I have to go find the truth.
Now, do we have anybody that we can, or that we have talked to inside of the police department?
Yeah, we've talked to Gummert, right? Detective Gummert. Yeah. He's been our buddy.
He's been nice to us, hasn't he?
He probably doesn't like us now, but I don't know. I mean, he's always been nice, and he's always been a stand-up guy from what I've known, because he didn't have to talk with me, which seems kind of weird. Why wouldn't you want to get this stuff out of there? But but he did take the time to answer our questions, and it sounds like he's still willing to, at least with certain people. I don't know, until he blocks you too. Unless you want to get blocked, but
I'm down to get blocked.
Well, I mean, the whole thing is, generally what I found is if you treat people the way that you want to be treated,
yep,
don't be, they'll treat you the same way. And that's, and if you come across people, you treat them the way you want to be treated, and they don't treat you that same way, it's probably not somebody worth talking to.
Now,
has he given?
Go ahead.
Oh, has he given any correct answers to your questions?
I would say so. Yeah, I would say so. Because remember, we got to ask him I asked him 21 questions based on things that the group had brought up and questions that we had then. And some of them are kind of answered where it's like, okay, he could have said more. He could have. It's almost like it's like a yes or no. And every question was phrased to make it simple for him to answer yes or no.
So he didn't have to elaborate.
Yeah,
okay.
basically, yeah. And he still lied about a couple of those questions too that he got called out on, and he says that he was wrong. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. This is my personal feeling, and I've lived in Minnesota my whole life, and I don't know if the police are just stupid or if they're involved, because it seems everywhere in Minnesota they just screw up these types of cases that are serious murders. So I don't know. I don't understand.
God.
Is that okay? I said that?
God.
I hope I didn't offend anyone.
Yeah, that's fine.
Oh my God. No, you have to be kidding me. What other cases?
Oh.
There was a new one that I saw today or yesterday that there's a woman who's accused of a double murder suicide. She killed her 2 young kids, and then somehow they determined that she shot herself. So I haven't looked too deep into it, but there's a lot of weird. Minnesota is just, there's a lot of weird crimes, a lot of weird things.
There are, and I was just kind of referring to ones that from the way past, like not solving Jacob Wetterling and all those, and then they had the clues right there. So these are like older cases I'm referring to.
Okay.
And just thank you for letting me speak. I'm so interested in this. I never thought he killed his family when I heard it on the news, and I didn't know anything about Gray State or anything. And then I started watching Netflix. I found you guys, and, I hope we can get justice for this family.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you. Thank you for joining the group and sharing your thoughts.
Thank you.
What's your view on the case right now as opposed to when you first heard about the case?
So I haven't, so I'm real new, so I haven't gotten all of your information, but just a few things stuck out at me was the psychic said something about a red-bearded person and that Ronnie knew who it was, and another psychic said that Ronnie knew who it was. And I just wonder, could his brother been involved? Because he's the only one I saw with a red beard in that Netflix movie. And then they also said the right-hand man. And I know in one of the videos I seen, David had his arm around and he said, "This is my right-hand man," but I don't know where they were speaking at. I think they were trying to, get funds to make the trailer. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think you got to find that for us, because I'm curious about the right-hand man now.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I was going to ask you guys, is that Danny Mason? Is it Mitch Heil? Who would have been his right-hand man?
Personally, I don't think him and Danny Mason were actually as close as Danny would like to say.
Okay.
Depends on the time, I would say, but I'd be very curious to hear the source of where David says that, who he's talking about. If you can find anything on that, that'd be very helpful.
I will try. Yeah, okay. And you have to remember now, you folks have so much information, which is great, and this is just a few things coming in. You know what I mean? I'm just anxious to learn. I know you guys have been talking about a hit. I think it could have been that too. Definitely.
Well, we're talking about all different things, right? We're talking about whatever anybody thinks could have possibly happened, or just any thoughts. We're just trying to work this out, trying to figure out what really happened here. That's really the whole point.
So, aside from Danny, could it have been Sean Wright, his right-hand man? Because Sean Wright and David were pretty close, and Sean Wright was a member of Gray State, and Rainier would have known him. Yeah. Right? Okay. David would have let him into the house.
were they out fundraising together or showing or talking about Gray State, trying to raise the money to make the film together?
Yeah, I think so.
I think Sean Wright is one of the guys David distanced himself from, or tried to distance himself from.
Okay, interesting.
But was there any I can't remember if the dog had done anything to. Was there any damage to David's head?
Yeah.
I will never believe Paleo did any damage to those people at all, because I have a dog. If you feed it a chicken bone, it can kill the dog. Well, how would they munch through a hand? I think the hand was taken off, and then it got the gun. They used that to go get the gun numbers or something. I don't know. I don't think that dog ate anything. There's just no way.
I don't know. It's hard to It's hard to speculate for myself on the dog and what the dog could have done as in damages. I do personally myself believe that a dog can chew through human flesh, I guess. But I don't know, because they were so short timing in decomp, I don't think the dog would have had enough time to be able to do that.
Right.
And the bones that are missing, the skull, the skull bone is very, 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 very hard. And it's, most people see, because you watch TV and somebody gets hit in the head, their head splits all open. That's not how it works. You have to really whack that head hard.
Yeah.
And so even in dog scavenging, both in the wild and dogs that do eat their owners, the head has always been left behind. I have never seen a case where the head was gone. And yet here they want me to believe this little tiny dog that was tiny when they found it ate 2 complete heads, 3 hands, and an arm.
Exactly.
Yeah, no way.
And my question is like, if the dog did take the bone per se, like from the head, you would find that in the house.
Yeah.
You could not miss that, no matter if it was under a chair or not. But also thinking about the police and their crappy work, I don't know. You could probably miss a lot if you just automatically think, oh my, okay, I gotta stop. I'm gonna get so triggered about it again. I can't. Anyway.
Well, and too, what they failed to explain as well is that, especially the piece skull that I did the video on that shows the blunt force trauma, that piece of skull still has skin and flesh attached. Now, why would the dog, if it's going to eat a head, leave flesh, but then choose to chew on a really hard bone? That makes no sense whatsoever.
Exactly. Well, and it's like, even like you put, I don't know, you put like a boneless chicken thing in front of a dog and you put a bone there, which is it going to go for first?
Exactly.
So, I don't know. That was just, I don't know.
Well, how come the feces hasn't been checked? How come they haven't? I suppose they don't test anything because they're like, we already know what happened.
And I have asked them that, and they will not. They didn't answer the question at all. But they did nothing with the dog other than take it to a kennel and have it watched for a certain amount of time. They didn't check feces. They didn't X-ray him. They didn't look for vomit. They did nothing.
Yeah, if they thought for 1 second that the dog did any damage to those bodies, the first thing they should have done was take a stool sample. That should have been the first thing. It's common sense.
And X-ray the dog, because that many bones, like someone just mentioned about the chicken bone, that many bones could kill and would generally kill a dog. And why just sit there and go, okay, don't do anything with this dog, just watch it and feed it and water it? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's what I think. Okay, are the police? Is there no protocol? Are they just dumb? Or are they just? I can say that I don't have a job. I'm disabled, but I mean, I can say it out loud. They're either totally dumb or they're in on it. I swear. And
what is their protocol? That's a good question. It's good to find out.
Do they even
what
have
one? That's a great question.
Right. Where's that? Because to me it would have been so obvious that it wasn't a murder-suicide. Like you said, there's just no way he could have killed himself, and I don't know.
Yeah, every professional I've taken it to, both that are working and who are retired, and even those in the United States and outside of country, I've presented it to, as many people as I possibly can, and I just will show them, like the picture, the sketch, and then, the final police report. And all they do is look at the sketch, and I'm just like, okay, they'll just write back right away, this is a triple homicide. They're like, this was no way. This was a murder-suicide. They said, no way. Everyone, without exception. So why are these guys in Apple Valley at the Apple Valley Police Department hell-bent on just saying, we said this, and this is what we're going to keep it as because we don't want to look like we don't know what we're doing? And why are they covering it up? It has to be one or the other. Like you said, they're either totally stupid, which I've talked to him, and he seems like a pretty smart man. Or they're covering it up, and why?
Maybe just saving face, like you said. But why wouldn't the FBI or the BC? I don't know. I know we got pictures from the BCA, but I just don't get why they're not investigating. I don't know. It frustrates me.
Well, maybe they've never been contacted.
But anyways.
Yeah, I think that's going to be one of the next thing is to contact the feds about it. Got to be careful because usually then they put a file on you. So I'm not suggesting anybody contact them, but I do think at some point I probably will contact them.
Question.
It's okay. I don't mind a file. I'm sure we all have a file somewhere.
That's true. Those are cats. Yeah.
Can they
give them reason to keep your file. Go ahead.
Can they put an American file on a Canadian?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
Yes,
if you're here in America, who knows?
Yeah, that sucks. Because I was going to say, hey, girl, hey, I'll come in.
Well, no, it's just how can we get it reinvestigated? Is there any way? I mean, is it about writing letters to the Apple Valley Police Chief, a short one, can you please open this case? Is that what it's going to take, a letter writing campaign, or
no,
what do you think?
It's going to take more, personally. I think it's going to take a lot. I think it's going to take a lot of effort, a lot of years, the right circumstance, prayer. But I do think that there will come one day where, yes, this will be reopened. And maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I keep feeling. I do honestly think that will happen one day.
Good to hear. So now this $50,000 that was taken out, could you talk a little bit about that again? Just who took that out? Was that, because I heard something about Dan Jr. taking that money out and then taking a vacation. Is that true?
I think you need to look at the records. I don't know. Have you looked at the financial records? It's page 1. It's actually it's a long document, but on the very first page it does talk about that. I mean, you can
Dan
actually.
still on the line?
Yeah, I could answer a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
If you want to, yeah.
There's two things that I think she's referring to. One is the GoFundMe campaign, which raised $8,000, and the following month, Dan Jr. was photographing himself outside of a hotel in Vegas, and so people suspected that he took, the money for personal gain and went on a trip. We can't validate or prove that, but all we know is for sure that he was in Vegas, and the donations for the GoFundMe, which I made a donation myself, and I got an automatic email reply back from Dan Crowley himself saying thanks for the donation. So I know that it went into his account, and he's the one who received it, which I thought was strange because the fundraiser was going to Comel's mother, Nyla, who was sick in Texas with cancer issues. So that was strange. The other thing that was strange about that was they asked for $6 million with an M as the goal for that fund. Not 10,000. Not 20,000, not 100,000, not 800,000, but not even $1 million. They're asking for $6 million was the stated goal of that campaign, and I thought that would have been enough for police to investigate, to raise their antenna, to research this a little further. Right. The 50,000 that I was talking about earlier was a withdrawal from a trust account that Dan Sr. had. It was his trust account for his children, so he's the only one that had access to it. It was a POD account at Wells Fargo Bank, meaning it was payable only on death of the owner of the account. And so Dan Sr. is not dead, therefore he's the only person who has access to that account. And that account had several $100,000 in it at various times. Investigators pulled the records for that account because David's name was on it. So the question is, there was a $50,000 cash withdrawal, not from an ATM, not via an ATM, but at the actual bank teller in the form of cash, not a cashier's check, not traveler's checks, but cash. And it was taking place in the middle of October. Now, police records show that Dan Sr., when he was interviewed by police, he said that he was out of the country the entire month of October in Germany traveling on business. So he contradicts his own story by saying that he couldn't have done the withdrawal. The withdrawal was made at a Minnesota location branch in the U.S. So if he was in Germany, it probably couldn't have happened. Now, the name that was signed was Daniel, I'm not sure if it was T or J, the middle initial, but it was Dan Jr.'s middle initial that looks like he either did it as a mistake or was trying to forge his father's name. So there's speculation. It's speculative that Dan Jr. made the withdrawal from Dan Sr.'s bank account in the form of fraud.
Okay,
so that's the speculative nature, but that was in the middle of October. So I'm not sure why anyone would be getting $50,000 of cash. Dan Sr. is a businessman, an entrepreneur, and an engineer who's involved with many different types of businesses and has lots of accounts and funds. He's a millionaire, I guess. So he could easily transfer money around. I couldn't see a reasonable person needing $50,000 of cash for anything. The other thing that's suspicious in that is that the cash never comes back in. Yeah. It's not like the next day money came back in the form of a deposit. Now, going back to our thinking of these individuals doing this and their IQ level, what you do see the next day is a transfer from another account of exactly $50,000 into this account. So I think that's led to believe, if ever questioned by police about this, the person could say, oh, I put the money back. But it was a transfer from another account altogether. There was never a deposit. A $50,000 of cash coming out is going to need a deposit.
So it's still missing regardless.
It's still missing. And a transfer is not going to do any good. Money still has to get into the account or into one of the related accounts somehow for the transfer to take place. So I think that to me is evidence of someone trying to cover up that fact by making that transfer. Which you need to see a deposit, and there's no deposit ever made in that account for $50,000 or more at all. So I think that's the highly suspicious nature of these financial dealings that I think even if you're not that good of as an investigator or a low-end detective, those kind of things would be an armchair investigator like ourselves could put two and two together here. And I don't think those were ever followed up on or researched at all, and I think they should have been.
Right, I agree. And I'm thinking, what if David found all that out, and that's why he started isolating himself? You know, he's like, oh my gosh, all this is going on. What are they doing, embezzling money? What? You know, maybe he knew something was up. But thank you for explaining that to me, Dan. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody got anything else to add here, or shall we shut this down for now?
I know Dan must be getting tired. It's late.
It's late over there.
It is late. I agree. This has
been
wonderful.
Oh, that's right. You're there too.
Yeah,
I'm ready to wrap up. So,
Make a wish.
If you don't have anything else, I could drop off here in the next few minutes.
Okay. Thank you. It was great talking with everybody.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. This has been good. We'll do it again.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Okay. Night.
All right. Chat with
Good
you
night.
later.